Hello friends, Clage back, another Punishing Grey Raven video today, and if you've probably noticed on the channel, I took a bit of a break to catch up on some IRL projects, but I am back in my office and hard at work on prepping for our upcoming new patch, our new frame, and of course I have been working on the Evernight Beat lore video. Still no tentative release for that, I still have a lot of work to do, but it is starting to come along, so hopefully no later than this month, but no promises. You never know what's going to happen, and those videos take a unique amount of time to get right, so. But I am still working on it, I promise. But today I want to take a break and discuss a topic that's been coming up pretty frequently in PGR discussions that I've seen, and especially in the comments section of my guides and team guides, and that is the current state of memory sets in PGR. Now, before anyone gets all uppity and runs to the comments to make a big stink about anything, this is not meant to be a clickbaity, here's why memories in PGR are horrible and they must be fixed. It's not that type of discussion at all. This is more going to be me taking a look at what memories are currently seeing a lot of use versus which ones are not seeing a lot of use, and examining whether a different approach to how memories are designed in the future is something worth considering for the game. So this is going to be a lot of theory crafting where I just share some thoughts and ideas that have kind of popped into my head about what we currently do with memories and what we could be doing with memories potentially down the road. So this is mostly just going to be a fun mental exercise, so don't take anything here as a gospel. Clage thinks the way memories should be made are like this and not like anything else. It's nothing like that. This is very much a we're spitballing and throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. So don't take anything in here too seriously, all right? That's my one disclaimer before we get into this. But let's start off with talking about what spurred this idea for me to make this video in the first place. And that is the relative underperformance of the elemental effect memories. So we now have a total of 4 elemental effect based memories. The 3 that have come prior to Rosetta's release, and then the updated brand new one we got that's version limited in the Bunsen set, which is designed for the Ultima Slash team. Now, if you have been watching my guides or have just been following anything about PGR and the new team updates and such, you are probably aware that these sets have not exactly hit home. They don't see a lot of use. There is not a single one that has managed to break through in being a 4-piece viable set for their particular elemental effect. At most, we have seen 2-piece use of like Clanova on the Glaciation team, and a 2-piece use on the Plasma Beam one. Is Plasma Beam, Plasma Blade? I always get this backwards. I do it a lot. Plasma Beam. I keep wanting to say Plasma Blade. I'm going to be real. I think Plasma Blade sounds cooler, but I'm not the design team, so nobody cares. Nonetheless, these two have seen some 2-piece use in their respective elemental effects. However, I do want to point out that both Glaciation and Plasma Beam are 2 of the worst performing elemental effects currently, so it's not exactly a huge boost to the overall quality to say that we're using at least the 2-piece on these. But nonetheless, Poincare has seen no use. It just does not break through on the Dark Flow team in any way, shape, or form. And the new Bunsen set for Rosetta just also has not seen any use whatsoever because its set bonuses simply do not match up for what Rosetta and company can do for the Ultima Slash team. So the relative underperformance of these sets has kind of been what got me to go, let's talk about this. Let's think about how we could possibly approach memories from a different perspective, or if this is even a problem in the first place. So if you've been playing PGR for any amount of time, you are probably very aware that there are certain sets of memories that just get used and recommended for a plethora of builds. There's a pretty long-standing tradition at this point of the older memory sets being the most effective memory sets to pair with a character's signature set. For example, Patton, Chinjion, Bathlon, Heisen, Shakespeare. If you are using one of the base 5 elements that isn't Nihil, you are almost certainly going to find this set somewhere as a 4-piece, somewhere on the team. Sometimes multiple characters running it as a 4-piece on their given team. These sets also tend to perform the best for their respective elemental effects. Patton was a go-to for the Ultima Slash team because it's physical damage. Chinjian is the go-to for the Glaciation team because it is ice damage. Bathlon for Dark Flow, etc., etc. Shakespeare has been part of Ignition since Ignition really got off the ground. This is not news to anyone who's been playing PGR for a bit. These sets are very, very popular. So this has proven even more true of late with Bathlon during this patch. The Dark team just straight up needs this memory set somewhere on there to be effective. The Elemental Shred and the general bonus of having Bathlon as a 4-piece set on at least one of your main field attackers is too good to pass up for the Dark team, even with the introduction of our brand new Breaker class and Rosetta coming into the game. This has created a bit of a conundrum at times because Bathlon is so good that it actually makes it so we don't necessarily want to overuse one of the other commonly used sets in the game, that being Kadi. Kadi gets used all the time because, well, it boosts signature moves, it boosts ultimates, and it boosts your signature energy game to cast your ultimates. PGR is a game that is very, very centered around using your ultimates as often as you can because Time Stop is effectively the most powerful ability in the game. So Kadi is always going to have a place. It's a powerful set. It gets used. On the Dark team, we've kind of found a conundrum where, let's say you have Bianca Triple S and Rosetta Double S3. Rosetta Double S3 kind of needs to run Kadi because of the unique signature energy threshold she has to work around with the way her kit works. The problem is you really just want Bathlon on Rosetta because you want it somewhere on the team. But what if you have an SS3 Rosetta and a Triple S Bianca on the same Dark team? Well, the Triple S Bianca wants to be doing her 5x ultimate rotation, right? That means you need Kadi. That is basically a requirement for her to be able to do the 5x ultimate rotation. So now you have a conundrum where the best set, hands down, for your team is one that you need to have a 4-piece of somewhere, but neither of your main field attackers can really afford to put it on because they both need Kadi to deal with their signature energy. And this kind of has, you know, a compounding problem where it's like these older sets are so much better than every option available, including the new elemental effect sets, that they just become the de facto equipment, no matter what you're looking at. Now, the Dark team situation I'm talking about is pretty unique. More often than not, you're going to find whatever the newest attacker is probably uses Kadi and or the elemental shred resist set that goes alongside whatever their base element is, or you're going to put the elemental shred set on your other field attacker or whatnot and kind of make things work. You know, it's pretty straightforward at this point. You kind of know what sets to look at when a new character comes out. Originally, I kind of looked at this exercise as the base elemental sets are too strong. Like, Heisen is too good to ever lose its spot on the Lightning team. Shakespeare is too good to ever lose a spot on a fire-based team. But as I scoured over this page specifically, the filter set in the event shop for the memory sets, I kind of realized that that's honestly just not true. What we actually have is not sets that are too strong at what they're doing. We just don't have that many non-signature sets in PGR. Take a look at the memories for a second here, and let's go down here. The vast, vast, vast majority of memory sets in Punishing Gray Raven are signature memory sets that are tied to a specific character. And in addition to that, pretty much every single signature set is very inflexible. It is only good on the unit it was designed for. You don't really see characters borrowing the signature set of another S-rank character because it doesn't provide them the bonus, because so much of the bonus in a signature set is tied to that set's ability to boost the unique kit that the character has for it. We also get a new signature set effectively every patch right now, because every new patch, we're getting S ranks. We're not getting A rank characters anymore. Every S rank character gets a signature set. Rosetta came out, she got Nimue. When we have an S rank character come out next month, or in this next patch, they're going to have a signature set. That's a guarantee with every S rank character. So we're seeing new signature sets every patch. And that kind of means there's not a lot of reason to be designing non-signature sets, because that's where the design focus is right now, with getting all these new S ranks into the game and making them a regular thing. So we kind of have an issue, if you want to call it that, where the reason we see so many of the same sets being recommended and working best even on brand new characters is that there just aren't that many not signature sets. You don't have that many options to choose from. If you're running a supportive character, you're going to run one of the 3 support sets, right? You're going to run Da Vinci, Einstein, or Guinevere. Occasionally stuff like Philip, occasionally stuff like Catherine, but for the most part, it's gonna be one of these 3 and some combination of these 3 if your character is a full support character like an amplifier. There are often times where an amplifier doesn't even use their own signature set. The exception usually being the physical characters, because oftentimes the signature set is what enables their crit bonuses, which are required for the physical team to function worth a darn. So there are exceptions. These are not, lock, stock, and barrel. Every single support uses these. But about 99% of the time, you're using these same sets. And that's because there aren't that many support sets in the game. There just are not a lot of options to choose from. So you use the ones that are tried and true, and we know they work. So for me, the next question of this entire exercise becomes, is this actually an issue? Is it a problem that there are not a lot of generic sets that are designed to be bonuses for existing characters who already have a signature set, and you're just looking to give them the most possible buffs and or most possible ways to increase their overall output within the confines of their given teams? I would say no. This is not really a problem at all, actually. The big thing with gacha games is that in general, they're min-maxy, right? It is very, very common, and I would say probably one of the largest discussion points in any gacha game is figuring out how to maximize the characters that you roll on and add to your teams. You're going to be looking for whatever provides the highest damage output for your new character, or whatever provides the best set of buffs if it's a more support-based character. So let's go to a magical fantasy land where Kuro decides to do a big design session and they churn out like 24 new quote-unquote generic memory sets. So we have, a new version of a Bathlon type effect. We have a new Einstein, etc., etc. Let's just say there's 3 times as many generic sets as we have right now. What's actually going to happen is we're going to play around with them. We're going to figure out which ones are the most effective for their respective elements and teams. And those are going to be the ones that get used. And all those other ones that got designed are going to be thrown in the trash bin and ignored moving forward. So that means to me, this isn't really a problem. It is just a byproduct of the nature of gacha games. People try to maximize things as much as they can, especially in a game like PGR where you have leaderboard aspects in Warzone and Pain Cage and stuff. People are just going to want to know, what is the best equipment for my character? They're not concerned about the variety. They just want to know, hey, what do I put on this character to make them work right? And that's a perfectly reasonable way to go about it. I don't think it's a bad thing that a newer player or a free-to-play player who's getting into the game can just walk into the memory shop in the state, the event stage, and pretty much know right away exactly which memories they should be prioritizing to purchase and build on their characters. You need your Dark team to be more effective? Go grab Bathlon. You need your Ice team to be more effective? Go grab Shinjion. You need your supporter to be able to make QTEs better? You get Da Vinci. All of these things are things that are well established within PGR, and they keep it simple. They keep the equipment aspect of getting your character geared up very straightforward, and I don't think that is a bad thing at all. Simplifying the equipment side of things when we have very complex characters, sometimes with very complex inputs and rotations, making this part easy is not bad. There's no need to have a whole bunch of variety and a whole bunch of which of these is the correct set when you already are going to be spending a lot of time learning how to pilot your character correctly, learning how to do a rotation with your character and the other characters on your team, because oftentimes a new character makes the rotation for existing characters change. It happens a lot in PGR. So we have the potential for a whole lot of bloat and mechanical overload if we decide, you know what, there isn't enough variety in the memories. They keep using the same ones. We got to put some new stuff out there and make them at least consider doing something else. Bloat for the sake of bloat rarely ends up as a good game experience. It doesn't really add much to anything. All it's going to do is create a headache, especially for guide makers like me, because now I would have to sit around and try way, way more combinations of memories to figure out, okay, what's actually the best one. Because let's be real, if you are watching a character guide, whether it's mine or someone else's, or whether it's my, PGR or a different gacha game, you aren't really concerned about which stuff was tried and turned out to not be that good. You just want to know what the good stuff is. You want to know what the good set is so you can buy it, equip it, and be done and start playing the character. And I think that is perfectly reasonable, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that whatsoever. PGR is a complex game once you are on the combat field. We don't need to make it a complex game in terms of, oh my god, there are 300 memory sets. Which ones am I supposed to use? So I don't think overall this is a problem. I don't think it's a big issue for PGR. I don't think PGR is worse off because when a new Lightning character comes out, Heisen's probably going to be a strong consideration for that Lightning character. I don't think that's a bad thing. It's not hurting the game overall. The only problem I truly see with memories right now is the one I already mentioned. I think the elemental effect sets have kind of landed with a dull thud. They just don't provide enough bonus within themselves to justify using them over the generic elemental memory sets. And I think that feels kind of bad because it's not the best look in the world to have your version limited stuff come out and advertise like, hey guys, here's the Ultima Slash set. Here it is. It's right here. It's discounted compared to the other memories, even though that's mostly a trivial thing with how cheap memories are in general to purchase and build. But when you put a whole set on here and literally no one's going to use it because it just doesn't live up to snuff against the basic elemental sets, that feels bad. It's not great. It's not the best look in the world. And it's kind of compounding because the elemental effects are already a somewhat frustrating mechanic in punishing Grey Raven because they tend to be much more finicky and much more strict on how they're utilized well as opposed to the base elemental effects. Very, very rarely do you get to get creative with your rotations on the elemental effects. Many of them brute force you into, you have to do X to activate Y so you can perform Z. That is a very common and regular aspect of using the elemental effects in PGR. So these sets showing up and either not being used at all or getting used as a two-piece at most, I do think is not a great look. I don't think it is a back-breaking problem for PGR. I don't think this makes PGR in a horrible place because these memories are falling flat. It happens all the time in other gacha games. Other gacha games, you get characters who are released and just straight up fall flat and don't do anything. PGR, at least we don't really have to deal with that, especially right now since they're not releasing A ranks. We just know a new character comes out, this character good. It's the bare minimum, character going to be good, character going to go on a meta team. You know what I mean? So that to me is the only quote-unquote problem with memories as we have it right now. But on the plus side, these sets not being must-have means there's that much less that new players have to invest in. So if you are, working on getting your account up to speed, you're starting to build some teams, maybe you've been playing long enough through the Global Sync that now you're actually starting to build up the elemental effect teams. Not having to run to the shop, buy and build these is not the worst thing in the world. Now, are memories expensive to buy and just level up? No, not really. Once you've been playing PGR and you're doing the event farming stage daily and building up the currency, buying and leveling memories becomes basically an afterthought. It's just something that you real quick go to the shop, buy your 4 things, level them, done. Like it's not hard. What does get a little trying and expensive with memories is hypertune materials. If you have been playing for any amount of time, you know that hypertune materials are not the easiest thing to get a hold of without spending real-life money on the packs that have them. And even if you spend real-life money on the packs that have them, you don't get a ton of them. It's no secret that I spend a decent amount of money on PGR. I've been open about that since the moment I started making content for this game. And even I struggle to maintain having enough hypertune materials to regularly keep my units buffed up and test things. Now, I have to acknowledge that I am in an extremely unique situation where I am making guides. I am doing a lot more testing and theory crafting than basically like 99.9% of people that will ever touch PGR for any amount of time. So I burn through hypertune materials a lot more consistently than the average player, but it's still a thing that matters, and it's still a thing that if you are especially a free-to-play player, you don't want to be throwing these on memories willy-nilly and not knowing if it's going to be a long-term worthwhile investment for you. So not having these new extra elemental effect sets be the end-all be-all means you don't have to go spend the effort and resources to get them up to snuff on your character. I think that's fine. I think that's a perfectly acceptable thing. Not every piece of equipment is going to be great. Some of them are going to be ignored. It is what it is. It's hardly a backbreaker. Now, do I think memories could be in a slightly better spot when it comes to the elemental effect memories? Yes, absolutely. But just making you a video to basically go, memories are mostly fine. These elemental effect ones are kind of a dud, but everything else is, it is what it is. That's not a very interesting video, and I would have been talking for 20 minutes to basically say, it's okay, move on. I think if you're going to open up discussion about what could be made better, you need to actually provide suggestions and ideas for how to make something better. Otherwise, you're just bitching for the sake of bitching. And don't get me wrong, I've been around a while. I do enjoy me some bitching for the sake of bitching, especially with the world in the state it is. That's totally different topic. But I think it's better if I, as someone who makes content for the game and is trying to get more people to play it and wants you to have fun playing it and better understand how the game works, probably makes more sense if I actually offer some concepts, ideas, and or solutions to these quote-unquote problems. Again, I don't think they're really problems, but it doesn't do me any good to just sit here and be like, this kind of sucks, but I don't have any ideas. That's boring. So let's talk about some actual ideas of how I think we could change up the memory situation without requiring a bunch of bloat or without requiring a total upheaval of what we're doing in the first place. And the first thing I want to highlight is the change in this patch to the Da Vinci set. So in this patch, we got the first 6-piece set bonus, the updated act of the Da Vinci set that removes cooldown restrictions. This is a very unique buff. This is a very, very wild buff to have on anything in Punishing Grey Raven. And this now opens up some avenues where now we have a discussion of maybe it's not best to run 4 and 4 or 4, 2 and 2. Maybe I want to sacrifice running more than 2 sets for the sheer sake of having the 6-piece bonus set on my support character, because removing cooldown restrictions is no joke. Some pretty gross things can happen, especially now that we're getting characters like Rosetta that can do things like stack charges of QTEs. That's some pretty big business available to us. I think the concept of more 6-piece sets or even 8-piece memory bonuses could help bring in some new concepts that we could test and try and flesh out for new character builds. Now, I don't think we want every set coming in with a 6 and or 8-piece bonus all the time. But I think every so often, having a new set come out with higher, you equip more amounts of the memory, you get unique bonuses that are not available to anything else. I think that's worth some further discussion. Clearly, Kuro thought it was worth discussion because they put it in the game. So I think this is a good baseline for what could we do to make some new interesting concepts with this idea of going beyond a 4-piece set. The first concept I have that I've been thinking about is, if you've been watching my guides and if you've read through my comment section or heard my discussions that I get from people asking questions about, hey, can I do this if this character is SS? That's a thing that comes up pretty regularly these days. We are starting to get more and more characters that kind of sort of really want you to get them to SS3, because we are getting more and more characters where a major part of their kit is unlocked at SS3 that is not available at SS. So I had the wild idea of, what if we could create an 8-piece set that is a generic memory set. It's not a signature set. It doesn't offer specific bonuses to an individual character kit. And the generic bonuses on it itself are okay, but not amazing. Like, let's say it would clearly not compete with Bathlon if it was a dark-based set. Let's just theory craft that idea, right? But what if you went full 8 on this new conceptual set? What if you equip all 6 memories and you harmonize 2 more into a full 8-piece bonus? And that 8-piece bonus just had one thing, and that's unlock the triple or the double S3 passes of your character. This is a wild insinuation, I know. I'm way out on the ledge on this one, right? But hear me out for a second. Because we are getting more and more of these characters that really want double S3, and because double S3 is not a free-to-play friendly range to shoot for most players, I think this could be an interesting alternative to let that happen. This would let players who, for example, I have a perfect character in mind when coming up with this example, and she's right here. How nice of you, Han Ying, to make my video look smarter. I'm definitely not. That's a lie, but I will take the funny timing of her popping up in the lobby. Han Ying is the exact character I'm thinking of here. I get so many people being like, can I make this work if Han Ying isn't double S3? And for the most part, I just have to be like, no, you probably can't. And I can't in good faith tell you should invest a lot of resources and effort into this character, because at this point she's one of our older meta characters. She's very likely to see a replacement in the near future. So you get double whammy. You get you need double S3, and the character's probably on their way out. That is not an appealing investment for basically anyone. That's a real hard sell regardless of where your account is and overall strength, and regardless of how much money you put into the game. If you're whaling, it's not a thing you think about in the first place, and if you're low spending or free to play, it's just not really an option because that's too much to invest in an older character. But what if you could just forego her signature set, forego something like Patton that is very good on her as a physical character, and go, here's a generic memory set that gives some decent buffs, not great buffs, but now my Han Ying just gets her double S3 passives no matter what. I think that is an interesting weighted option to consider. And the reason I'm specifically choosing this concept of an 8-piece set that would be double S3 and not triple S or higher is that obviously getting those passives is the main source of income for Punishing Grey Raven alongside stuff like coatings. You kind of make your money in this game by convincing players to roll extra copies of characters to get to double S3 to triple S and beyond. Double S3 is only one extra copy of a character. I don't think offering a set bonus that lets you have double S3 without getting the character there and paying the price of not using their signature memory set to be the barrier of entry there, I think that's a fair trade-off that really wouldn't upend the overall economic balance of the money PGR makes. You go to Triple S where you need 3 extra copies of a character. That's a little different. That is a lot of rolls. That is a lot of currency that you don't have to spend. I don't think that would be a fair thing to players who do spend money on the game. And I get that it's very easy to be like, well, yeah, you're a whale. Of course you don't want that. No, I don't care. I personally do not care if people get better access to stronger passives, regardless of how much money they put in the game. How much money I put into the game is my own decision. It has nothing to do with anybody else. I don't feel entitled to only have access to passives because I spend money on the game. Other people will think differently. This is definitely not a universal thing. I get that. But I don't think it would be a huge reach to allow that kind of set bonus for foregoing the option of using any other memory whatsoever on a given character. And I think it would eliminate a lot of the headache of some of these characters coming out and really, really encouraging you to get to double S3. Now, do I think this hypothetical memory set would ever get printed? No, almost no shot. I don't think this would ever work. But I do think it sets the idea for a reasonable way to approach memories from a new angle that could make things more interesting and give us more reason to consider other options, especially if you are a free-to-play player or a lower spender. And I will also point out that a set bonus this radical would take a ton of balance and testing to get right, because it would be very easy to just be like, well, if you're not double S3, this is absolutely what you do on every single character. And then we're kind of back at square one where it's like, hey, look, this one thing is always better than the rest and nobody cares about the other stuff. Like, that obviously doesn't really fix the concept of what we're talking about in the first place. So I do fully acknowledge that this is just spitballing. This is just theory crafting. It would require an immense amount of testing and balance to get right. So, but I do have some other ideas for what we could do with memories to make them a little bit more interesting, to possibly change up the theory of how we approach them here and there. The next idea I've had is the concept of paired sets. And what I mean by this is, let's say a new frame drops with their signature set. So whatever is going to be in the shop for the next patch, that would be right here where Nimue is for Rosetta's set, right? What if, in addition to the usual, you have your 2-piece and 4-piece set bonus on a signature set, what if you got a unique set of set bonuses for pairing the signature set with a specific existing memory set? So let's say you have Nimue for Rosetta, and it has a specific bond pairing bonus with the Bathlon set. Now, obviously, this is exactly what we do with most of Rosetta's builds right now, but I'm just using this to kind of have a simple baseline to explain why I think this is an idea worth discussing. This concept of pairing two memory sets and getting extra bonuses because they pair correctly together would be a really good signpost system for what memories to invest in on a brand new character that might help streamline that process for players who don't want to watch a guide just to know if they're building a character correctly. And we kind of have this in a small setup right now, where if you go to your members section, you can do the recommended equipment, right? Where it's like, here's the recommended memory sets. These are what you should be using on X, Y, and Z. And for the most part, these are not terrible suggestions. They're not always, in fact, I would say more often than not, they're not actually the tip-top option, because a lot of times it depends on what evolution your character's at. That often dictates what memory set is the best for them in a given situation. But for players who just fire up PGR, play the game, and kind of figure stuff out on their own, having a set bonus off to the side that says, hey, if you pair this with this other 4-piece set and harmonize it, you also get this unique set of extra bonuses in addition to the 4-piece bonuses of both sets. Again, I think this would be an interesting way to kind of eliminate some of the min-maxiness that comes with trying to figure out which sets do the most damage, which sets provide the optimal performance in Warzone or Pain Cage and whatnot. And I think the best way to do this is to have this extra paired bonus, so the extra set bonus in addition to your 2 4-piece set bonuses, just being that it buffs the actual buffs of the set themselves. So let's say that you pair a signature set with Patton, right? So the 4-piece set of Patton, increase extra bonus damage by 10%, and then hit them with the physical resistance shred of 7%, and then the explosion for 600%. Let's say if you pair Patton with the signature memory set and get the paired bonus, now instead the extra damage bonus is, let's say, 20%, and 14% for the resistance, and 1200% on the explosion. Doesn't make it extra broken, doesn't necessarily make you go, okay, this is so good I can't possibly pass it up. But what it does do is give you a nice direct signpost line of how you should be building a character. And in addition, this kind of does the exact same thing I was talking about with this concept of an 8-piece memory set that gives you your double S3 passives. We often see evolution passes being your shred gets higher, your bonus damage gets higher, your extra damage gets higher on either a core passive or a signature, or anytime you attack if you're a tank, stuff like that, right? So having a world where, okay, pair set 1, set 2, you get all your 4-piece bonuses, but now the 4-piece bonuses are enhanced. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward, could be an interesting way to kind of shake up the memory building game while also streamlining and simplifying it. And I don't think that is the worst thing in the world to do, because again, most people are not me. Most people are not interested in testing memory set after memory set, combinations of memory sets, combinations of resonances to figure out what gets the best return on investment. If the average person can just go, oh, if I equip this and then equip this other 4-piece set, I just get better bonuses, cool, easy, done. Super, super easy, straightforward way to do it. And again, kind of mimics the idea of, well, here's some of your passives just getting better anyway. The other thing I have as a last idea here, and it's pretty straightforward, is I just think we should see more of these 6-piece memory sets. I think we should see more sets offering what DaVinci currently offers with the 6-piece set. And I have a couple reasons for this. One, we've reached a point in Punishing Gray Raven where I think we are going to be seeing less and less leaps. Because now characters just actively launch with an elemental effect attached to their base element. For the longest time, the leaps were basically about either bringing characters back up to parity because they're still meta, but they're clearly outdated, but mostly to add elemental effects to characters that did not launch with an elemental effect. If we're not going to need to add elemental effects to characters moving forward, that means we have less incentive to create leaps for them. And I think an interesting way to move away from the leap system and not need it as much would just be to add more 6-piece bonuses. I would be perfectly down with signature sets starting to come out with 6-piece bonuses. Or even better, existing signature sets getting a 6-piece bonus added that gives you a reason to consider, okay, maybe I just do purely my signature set and then harmonize a 2-piece. And that justifies going that route. This would also enable a route to have the elemental effect bonuses not require separate memories that simply don't live up to the billing. Because that's, again, kind of the baseline for why I'm making this video in the first place, is the elemental effect sets just don't quite hit home well enough. They don't do enough to justify the slots they take up. Adding more 6-piece sets that help boost elemental effects on existing signature sets, I think is a somewhat elegant... I talk for a living. Eloquent solution to that situation we have with the elemental effects sets. And in addition, like I said, this makes it so now you don't have to worry about making sure characters get leaps all the time. I still think leaps need to be a part of PGR because leaps do very important things in addition to the elemental effects. Oftentimes, it helps a character remain meta viable for longer and be more worthy of field time. That, to me, is always a net positive. But in addition, anytime a character gets a leap, they go to the voucher shop. And having more and more characters in the voucher shop is obviously good because the voucher shop is one of the main ways that free-to-play players can catch up and get characters above double S and get characters to be more effective in the long term. So I don't want leaps to go away, but I do think putting 6-piece signature sets on, or 6-piece bonuses on the signature sets is a way to make it so you don't need to do leaps as often for characters that probably don't really need a leap buff in the first place. So, those are just my ideas. I don't know if any of these are remotely good. These are what I came up with in my head that at least sounded interesting and I thought were worthy of at least a modicum of discussion that might, turn into something down the road. Do I think Kuro's going to watch this video? No. Even if they did, would they take any of my suggestions? Probably not. I'm just an idiot on the internet. You honestly should never take my suggestions, but being real about it. But I just wanted to do a fun mental exercise, something where I get to kind of ramble and just spit some ideas out without having to be super direct with a script and break down every little bit, nook and cranny of something. Because it's been a while since I made a video, and I just kind of wanted to rap for a little bit and keep it simple. But to kind of wrap all this up, all in all, I think memories in PGR are mostly in a perfectly fine spot. Memories are a means to an end, and they mostly just act as the de facto equipment system in the game. It's not the most exciting thing to have it be pretty obvious that certain memory sets are going to get used almost every single time once you see what type of character is being released and what their element is. If you see an amplifier being released, there's a very, very good chance Guinevere is going on them at some point, right? There's a very good chance that if a new attacker comes out, Cadi's probably going to at least be in the discussion for what's going on them. It's not the most exciting thing in the world when a new character gets released. But it doesn't need to be interesting for PGR to function. We don't necessarily need a billion choices to make this an interesting part of the system. If the choice is going to come down to putting more time and effort into the combat design of a character versus designing new and unique memories and memory set bonuses, I'm going to take the former 10 times out of 10. I would much rather see much more design effort go into how the character actually plays and acts upon the field than worrying about if their set is more interesting than the sets that came before it. That said, I still think the 6-piece Da Vinci set opens up a lot of doors for new experimentation. I think it would behoove the game to start making the elemental effect sets strong enough to actually justify running them in their respective effect teams, whether that is making the sets themselves better or using one of these weird concepts that I've yanked out of my butt and offering different kinds of bonuses to at least make them look more attractive than just defaulting to Heisen or Shakespeare or whatnot. But I have already rambled about this for 40 minutes. I want to hear what you think. I am genuinely curious how you feel about the current state of memories in PGR, because I get this discussion in my comments a lot. That's what really spurred me to want to make this video in the first place. I want to know what you all would do. What kind of new ideas or effects would you pitch if you got to sit into in a design session with the team itself? If you got to sit down and go, hey, what about this? What ideas would you pitch to the team? Did any of the ideas I throw out make a lick of sense, or do I just sound like a rambling moron? And quite frankly, I often do, so I will not be offended if that's what you think, because I think that about myself like 99% of the time. But now that I've gone on for this long about memories, yeah, let me know how you feel. Leave some comments down below. What would you do? How would you go about it? Are you fine with memories just being fairly straightforward and going, you know what, I don't care that the next dark unit probably uses Bathlon. At least I know I just build Bathlon and call it a day. So, but hopefully this was a fun exercise. I have fun doing little mental breakdowns of stuff like this on how could we change up an existing system to make it more interesting. Sometimes making stuff more interesting just means making it more complicated, and that's not always a good thing. So, again, this is purely a theory craft. This is not meant to be anything that you should chisel or stone, or that I think this needs to happen. I just wanted to kind of yap on the state of memories for a little bit because it's come up a lot in the comments section. So, but with all that said, as always, I appreciate y'all's feedback and support, especially during this little short hiatus I took to take care of some IRL stuff and to just take a break. Honestly, I just took a break, and I've actually been playing video games that wasn't playing video games for YouTube or Twitch, and it's been kind of refreshing, I'm not going to lie. But I am back at work. I will be continuing work on the lore video. I should be getting test server access this week, so I will be getting into the lab, working on our new character. And again, if you didn't catch the post I made in the community section, I now have no restrictions on test server stuff again, which means I can show the test server before release. I can do previews of the upcoming patch and all that stuff, so expect that probably this week as long as nothing goes awry with the new test server coming out. And again, in addition, I will continue working on the Evernight Beat lore video. It's going to be a little bit, still got a lot to do, and obviously the new guide, new character and stuff is going to have to take precedent this week once I get access to that. So bear with me, be a little bit more patient on the lore videos. Once I get this one out, the one after that is the one I wanted to make in the first place. I'm probably going to dive right into it. So they'll be coming out a little bit quicker after this one. Hopefully. No promises. The lore videos they're big undertakings, so bear with me as I still kind of hash out how to get them done in reasonable amounts of time. But as always, I appreciate y'all. If you want to do all the YouTube garbage, like, comment, subscribe. It's always appreciated. It's never necessary. And yeah, I'm going to get back to work. So y'all take care. Be good to each other. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.